Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to reconvene the budget meeting for the RTM and make a few opening statements. This is Tom Denbeck, my representative of the representative town meeting. This is a remote special meeting of the representative town meeting. There will be a roll call attendance after the pledge of allegiance. The agenda for the instructions to submit public comment for this meeting is available at www.waterfordct.org. A recording of this meeting will be posted on the same address along with the minutes. Meeting is open to the public via YouTube Live. Members of the representative town meeting or administration are asked to listen in the mute mode to avoid background noise and echoing. If a representative town meeting member has a question, please raise your hand and you will be acknowledged. Representative town meeting members need to identify yourselves when speaking. This platform has a chat feature. However, the chat feature will not be used for this meeting. Thank you. I'd like everybody to rise to salute the flag, please.
Flag can be found on my square.
To the flag of the United States of
States
America,
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now I'll ask the town clerk to take a roll call, please.
Mr. Attanasio.
Here.
Mr. Bono.
Here.
Ms. Brashali.
Here.
Ms. Cairns.
Here.
Mr. Condon.
Here.
Mr. Denbeck.
Here.
Ms. Driscoll.
Here.
Mr. Elsey.
Here.
Mr. Fioravanti.
Here.
Ms. Furry Wagner.
Here.
Mr. Gauthier.
Here.
Mr. Goldstein.
Here.
Ms. Cole.
Here.
Mr. Lurch.
Here.
Ms. Mativier.
Here.
Mr. Morgan.
Here.
Mr. Muckle.
Here.
Mr. O'Leary.
Here.
Mr. Olinsu.
Here.
Ms. Ritchie.
Here.
Mr. Rocchetti.
Here.
Ms. Stewart-Gelinas.
Here.
Mr. Swanson.
Here.
Mr. Welch Collins.
Here.
We have a quorum, moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We have a quorum. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to the town attorney, please.
Me first, right? Okay. Dave Campo, Town Clerk here. We just want to start by acknowledging the receipt of 31 items for public comment today, to go along with the other ones that came in throughout the past few days. I'm gonna quickly list off the names of the submitters for today. Craig Merriman, a concerned citizen. Marcia Benvenuti, Michael Perkins, Robin Shine, Bonnie Palmer, Joanne Duman, PhD, Lisa Moody, Lindsay Gagurich, Joy Morin, Tim Burrows, Susan Pedezwa, Brian Nichols, Jeffrey Hotsky, April Brown, Jose Gonzalez, Marissa Nakoka, Kelly Harrell, Ben Parent, BG Eben, Eric Page, Madeline Parent, Mary Moffett Childs, Stacy Blatnick, Brooke Stutzman, Sue Tanucci, Wayne Shadler, Megan Nelson, Joshua Steele Kelly, Joyce Vaughn, Terry Abate, Molly Quiles. Among those submitted, 4 did request to have their comments read into the record. We are going to accommodate that at this time. The first one, Dear Waterford RTM, please note that the written statement submitted by board member Marcia Benvenuti is not an official Board of Education statement. Consistent with Board of Education bylaw 9121, only statements made by the chairperson as the authorized spokesperson for the board are official Board of Education statements that express the majority opinion of the Board of Education. Sincerely, Craig Merriman, Chairperson, Waterford Board of Education. The next one. Dear RTM members, I have been on the Board of Ed and Finance Committee for the last 5 years. I feel compelled to comment on the impact your cut of $470,000 will have on the students and staff of Waterford Public Schools. How our administration has tried over the past few years to remedy any discovered inefficiencies and how to make our Board of Ed budget more manageable and sustainable in an uncertain future. Our budget started with a wiggle room of only 0.32% due to contractual obligations and mandates. Then the Board of Ed cut $163,000 and an additional $400,000 was eliminated from the capital budget, delaying repairs into the future. So with $470,000 cut, which represents 0.92, we are forced to look at more than that 0.32% wiggle room. We have no choice but to look at staff reduction. We can go with uniforms, professional development, subs for secretaries, etc., but they just won't add up to $470,000, especially after $163,000 has already been cut. The great strides we have been making with the help of our coaches and dedicated staff will be slowed, halted, or worse, reversed. Programs will suffer. Staff will have to be cut. Some of you spoke of finding inefficiencies in our budget. Let me assure you, Tom and his staff want every cent of the budget to be thoughtfully spent on things that improve our educational system, and they weed out any waste and employ cost savings measures. Over the years, they have or will be saving by replacing all lighting, motion activated already with LED lighting, $25,000 a year. All new buildings have geothermal heating and cooling. Clark Lane gas conversion, $33,000 per year. Friendship School students serviced in-house, $500,000 per year. Built-in special education programs for 101 students, $2 million a year tuition. K through 8 paying tuition to the general fund, $183,000 next year. Which would be equivalent of a taxable property worth $9,300,000. Elimination of top steps for new hires on last teacher contract, $8 million over 20 years. Set precedent for all other contracts newly negotiated and future ones. High deductible health plans mandatory. Marketing of Waterford High School to attract former magnet tuition student costs, 25% reduction in the last 4 years. Bought our own fleet of vans, 122,000 year savings. Use of virtual servers versus traditional replacements. Tom and his staff are always looking for ways to save money and have saved us millions in inefficiencies. The administration and staff work on the budget starting in November. They constantly listen to the suggestions of Board of Ed, Board of Finance, representative town meeting, and town officials, but no directives were given until this process was finalized. The administration and Board of Ed understand your concerns for sustainability, but last-minute drastic reductions do not produce sound educational practices. I propose we map out a mutually acceptable scenario for the next 3 years so we can phase out whatever reductions need to be made using educational best practices and professional expertise to guide us instead of a knee-jerk reactions. We employ our administration and staff because they are the experts in the field. Let them do their jobs to their ability. It is just not possible to reduce this budget by $633,000 plus the $470,000 and $400,000 in capital improvements and still maintain the programs and staff that have made us an exemplary district in our state. I fervently request you consider a much smaller reduction in the Board of Ed budget. The percentage increase only represents $36 per household, and with no town tax increase projected, taxes will not be increasing. We can still maintain the great results of our programs and staff have produced. We can continue to be recognized as a community who values education. We can continue to increase property values. It is up to you. Sincerely, Marcia Benvenuti, Board of Education. Rob Avina is going to read the next one.
Evening, everyone. Town Attorney Rob Levina. We have two other statements that were asked to be read. One is from Concerned Citizen. Dear Mr. Campo and Mr. Dembeck, please read the following email aloud at the meeting tonight. When we think about trimming costs in the Waterford Town budget, we should consider cuts in the Central Office of Education. We must preserve lower class size. Waterford has a superintendent, an assistant superintendent, and a director of special services. The role of assistant superintendent and director of social services position are combined in many districts. This would not directly affect students and would have no impact on class size and district offerings. Some of the job tasks could also move to the superintendent's job description. The central office positions are political oversight positions. A superintendent could and should take on more responsibility in these financially challenging times. He has tremendous support like administrative assistants, building administrators, HR, a business manager, coaches, etc. The high-paying positions in central office should be consolidated. Thank you for your consideration. Concerned citizens for a financially responsible town. The last statement that was asked to be read is from Mike Perkins. Dear Waterford RTM members, I would ask that this letter be read into the minutes of this evening's RTM budget hearing. I am writing in regard to the controversy over the reduction in the Board of Education budget request. While I understand the fear of staff reductions and cuts in programs, I would like to offer an alternative perspective. In this time of uncertainty, I feel that the reduction is appropriate. I myself have taken a 15% pay cut in order to retain my employment and support the company I work for, and my wife has accepted a 20% reduction in pay to support the local family business for whom she works. Despite this and the effect on our household budget, we keep in mind that we are more fortunate than many and that we continue to receive an income. Our heart goes out to those in our wonderful community who have experienced job losses and in many instances a total loss of household income. We all would agree that unemployment benefits, while helpful, are far from the income necessary to maintain a household. Regarding the reduction in the Board of Education request, I would offer the following. Number one, Superintendent Gerard's presentation Monday evening, I've attached the slide, showed a $989,426 increase in salaries and compensation. This represents a 3.2 increase over the current fiscal year. Number two, if the teachers union were to reduce that amount by the $470,000 reduction to the overall budget, the increase would still allow for a $519,426 or 1.52% increase in salaries and compensation. Three, keeping in mind those residents who have experienced pay reductions or catastrophic job losses, the teachers and staff would still realize a pay increase with no cuts to current proposed staffing or programs. Number four, if the teachers union agreed to a total pay freeze, that would allow a $519,426 buffer for the upcoming year to offset part, if not all, of the fear of what might be coming the upcoming year, I find the argument that the only result of the reduction of the Board of Education's request is staffing and program cuts to be not only short-sighted, it is tone deaf in these trying times. Outside of the current pandemic, the town of Waterford cannot sustain these continued increases. As a former RTM member, I tried for 2 terms to convey this message. I applaud the fortitude of the current RTM for their willingness to do the right thing in the face of what is popular. In closing, I would like to convey to those in our Waterford family who are suffering far more than I, that we are with you, we support you, and our town government supports you. Best personal regards, Michael Perkins.
All public comments, including the 4 that were read tonight, can be found at waterfordct.org. If you go to agendas under day 4, you'll see the totality of all of them from the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Town Clerk. At this time, we'll start the agenda for Thursday night. First item on the agenda is Department 10116, Retirement Commission. Retirement Commission for the upcoming year is $5,982,978. There's a standing motion on the floor. I'll put this as a motion made and seconded. And I understand Susan Driscoll is chair of the Retirement Commission. So possibly if anybody has any questions to the chair, they can ask Susan. What's your pleasure?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yeah, this is your golden opportunity, guys. You can get back at me. And I apologize for reading off the paper, but we all know I have a tendency to ramble, and even I'm tired of hearing my voice. So I would just like to say, as you look at the Retirement Commission budget, that in the budget for any year, the town is required to cover, at a minimum, the pay-as-you-go amount necessary to meet our contractual obligations under all of our pension plans. The Retirement Commission is charged by the RTM to request an additional amount each year to draw down our unfunded pension liability. In 2014, an actuarial review revealed that the town fell far short of meeting future pension payments required under the current state and contractual obligations, and the new account confirmed that our accrued unfunded OPEB healthcare liability was $22.5 million. The next year, the OPEB trust was established. The town hired a financial investment firm and a team of actuaries to help us manage this situation and determine the annual contributions and investment goals we needed to eliminate that liability hanging over our heads. In the next 2 fiscal years, the contributions recommended by our advisors were approved in full at budget time. Those amounts covered the pay-as-you-go obligations and each included approximately $500,000 to feed the OPEB trust fund. As a result, the 2019 valuation showed that our unfunded liability had dropped to $18.5 million. The FY20 budget request was nearly $1 million higher than the previous 2 years, and it was based on actual and pending increases in healthcare costs, contribution rates set by the state, and a lowering of the rate of return that we were allowed to use in our forecast for growth. During the budget process, the request was cut to $758,613, as you can see in your summary. That eliminated any contributions to the trust fund, and, as also shown on your summary, has fallen short of meeting our actual expenses in FY20. The original FY21 request of $1.4 million covered pay-as-you-go obligations and a trust fund contribution. It did not include any additional amounts to make up the lost investment opportunities in FY20. That request was approved by both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance earlier this year. But since then, the state has notified us that they have retroactively increased our contribution rates for FY20 for our MERS pension plans and have scheduled increases for the next 4 years. And about 3 weeks ago, our financial advisors notified us that they are switching to high-yield, high-risk investments for our pension portfolio in a last-ditch effort to offset the losses incurred as the stock market responded to the pandemic. The budget request before you now, with the OPEB line reduced during the Board of Finance's final action budget hearing, covers only the previously estimated pay-as-you-go obligations. And that's assuming that during the year we can recoup our investment losses. There is also a potential for shortages resulting from post-pandemic healthcare cost increase and higher than predicted contributions for our MERS pension. So I strongly encourage the members of the RTM to not be swayed by the somewhat misleading 9.2% increase shown in the far right-hand column, and to please approve this proposed budget with no further reductions. Thank you.
Does members of the RTM have any questions of the chairperson for the Retirement Commission? So you have none. I don't see any hands, so we'll take it to a vote. $5,982,978. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda tonight is 10136 Waterford Public Library, totaling $1,073,193. And I believe our library director is available with us tonight. And if we have any questions, the first section of the budget is personnel cost of $957,025. Any questions?
If I may, Mr. Moderator, may I make a couple of comments about our budget?
Yes, please do. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And I'll only take a couple of moments and a couple of positive notes. We discovered a miscalculation in our electricity line item budget, 52,100. And I'd like to give a correction to that request to reduce it to 34,000 from 37,530. And then I would also like to give the members an update on what's happening at the library since we've been closed. From the day we closed on March 13th, we've been thinking and planning about reopening, what our new normal will look like, and how things will change over time. We're looking at everything from a re-envisioned customer service model to the physical layout and furniture in the library to ensure social distancing. The State Library has developed a roadmap to reopening and recovery for Connecticut libraries with things to consider, guidelines, and recommendations, and that has been shared with the governor's office. Since we've been closed, the use of our collections, our digital collections, our ebooks, our e-audiobooks, our videos has exploded. However, not a day has gone by that we haven't gotten emails or telephone calls asking for a curbside service. I'm happy to report that starting this coming Monday, we are launching Library Grab and Go, a curbside, parking lot pickup service. We started making appointments this past Monday, and through 5 o'clock today, we have over 150 appointments for people to come and pick up their library books. Thank you.
Thank you, Roz. Before we, Ted Lynch, you had the floor.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, Roz. Good to
Hi,
see you
Ted.
again.
Good to see you.
Hey, Roz, I say this every year. You do an amazing job. Just in your budget detail, you explain everything in fine detail. It's amazing what you do at the library. In particular, budget-wise, if you look back on the line items between the 09, between 1819 and 1920, there was a $50,000 increase in your overall budget. Members on the RTM, and they may not be familiar with the library, in that it is owned by the town, but since 1967, it was run by an independent board of trustees. And that the board of trustees has had for many years an endowment, and they have contributed money towards the operation of the library year after year. And near the back of the summary of all the data, I think you have it stated that this year the Board of Trustees has allocated approximately $140,000 towards the operation of the library.
Right. It's usually about 12% of the overall operating budget comes from the corporate account.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we are all aware of that. I am, having been on your board for a number of years. So, we applaud you and the Board of Trustees for maintaining a nice endowment. And like you say, it amounts to like 12% of the budget. And in previous years, a long time ago when I was on the board, we kept on asking money from the town to support the purchase of books. And that became undoable, not doable. And consequently, the Board of Trustees has every year, for as many years as I can remember, contributed at least 10% of the budget from their own endowment. So again, thank you very much, Roz.
Thank you. I know there were a lot of new members, and I did have, we have a new welcome brochure, and I was going to bring copies if we had an in-person meeting for everyone, but I'd be happy to answer anyone's questions about the library.
Mrs. Wagner, the floor is yours.
You're on mute, Ms. Wagner.
Of course, David. Oh, I'm always on mute. I'm on the library board, so I will not be able to vote on this, but I just wanted to thank the director and her staff through their work through the pandemic. And I also want to notify the RTM members, in case they didn't see where the cuts were made, for the library to come in at close to 0% as requested by the first selectman. We have had to give up Sunday library hours. So I just wanted to let you know that, the library made a cut in services to meet that demand. And although we're all going to miss those Sunday hours, we had no other place to cut. So thank you, Roz, for your hard work. And I just wanted to let the RTM know.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions from members of the RTM on personnel costs?
Yeah.
If not, we'll go into services. I think, Raj, you're making a voluntary reduction in electricity. You want to give me that number again?
Yes, we're making the request from 37,530 to 34,000.
Electricity would be 34,080, right?
Yes.
We're on the services section. Any member of the ITM have any questions on the services section of the library budget?
To 34,005.
Bill Driscoll, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just wanted to check with the attorney. Do you need one of us to make a motion for that cut?
Yes, Mr. Driscoll, we do.
Thank you. Then I move that we cut line item 52-100 by $3,530 to arrive at a new total of $34,000.
Second.
Person who made the second, please identify themselves for the town clerk.
Paul Goldstein, 3rd District RTA. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the services section of the budget? If not, we'll take this to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions?
Wagner.
Thank you. I got you, Ms. Wagner.
Okay.
Kim, our finance director, can you give me a new total for services, please?
$1,069,663. Got it?
That's the
One.
total.
069,663.
You have a new subtotal for services though?
59,638.
That's what I got.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to the material and services, material and supply section of budget, which is $8,000. Any questions from members of the RTM?
No hands.
We'll go on to equipment, books and related material, $45,000. Any questions?
He's muted. Dembeck's muted.
Oh, excuse me. So a new total for the library is $1,069,663. Those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain?
Wagner.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank you for your help, Roz.
Thank you.
Next question on the agenda is 10135, Senior Citizen Commission. Department total, $548,127. Under personnel costs, we have $408,513, and I believe our Senior Citizen Director is with us tonight. Any questions? No questions on the personnel. We'll go on to services. Services total $121,494. Any questions?
No hands.
No question on services. Going to material and supplies, $15,278. Any questions? Under equipment, $2,842. Any questions? Therefore, the total $548,127. $127. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just feel a little bad that I haven't spoken, so I'll just express my gratitude for all the work that everyone's done to help us get to this point. So thank you.
Tom's muted again.
Thank you.
Next budget on the agenda is 10107, Finance Department. Finance Department has a total of $701,270, broken down as follows. Personnel costs, $553,370. And I believe our finance director's on the line if any has any questions. Any questions? No question on the personnel, we'll go on to services. On the services, $117,900. Any questions? Next item on the budget is office supplies. Office supplies, $30,000. Question? No questions. We'll take a vote on total budget, $701,270. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, 10145, Human Resources Department. Total budget, $266,233. Broken down as follows. Personnel cost, $200,240. Question? I think our HR director is available if we need her. No question? We'll go on to services of $65,143. Question? There's no question on material and supplies. We'll go on to, no question on services, we'll go on to material and supplies, $850. Question? If not, If not, we'll take it to a vote. $266,233 for the Human Resource Department for next year. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 10103, Board of Finance. Total for the Board of Finance is $66,000. Personnel cost of $4,400. Any question? No question on the personnel cost. We're going to services. Services, $61,600. Questions? No questions on those section of the budget. Total budget, $66,000. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 10108, Legal Department. Broken down as $298,000 even. Broken down as professional fees, probate court, and miscellaneous claims. Town attorney, the first selectman here tonight. Does anybody have any questions? Any hands? No. No one has any questions, we'll take it to a vote. Next year for the legal department, $298,000 even. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? The ayes have it, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 10122, emergency management. Emergency management total for next year is $1,087,258. Broken down as follows. Under personnel cost, $939,704. I think our emergency management director is available if you have any questions.
Tom, if I can just talk for a moment, Mr. Moderator.
Brett's asked to be recognized.
Brett, you got the floor, Chief.
Just quickly, I promised the former first selectman that I would act as a steward for the emergency management budget until the town hired an emergency management director. Thankfully, they have done so. Many of you have met him. Some of you have not had the chance to. Steve Sinagra, who's a retired captain from the Groton Town Police Department. He brings quite a bit of experience to the town of Waterford. Happy to have him here. I have talked with Mr. Sinagra. This is a budget that I put together. So if it comes down to it, I'll certainly defend it. But I think it gives you as an RTM and Steve Sinagra as the new EMD the opportunity to meet each other virtually as it may be. So we've talked. He's gonna go through the line items with you if you have questions, and if there's something that he doesn't know the answer to, then I'll gladly step in and assist as necessary. Just one thing with this, it's a decrease of 3.7% from last year's budget. That's mostly due to retirements of higher salaried employees and the hiring of newer, lower paid employees. It is most important to note that the contract for the dispatchers hasn't been settled, so there's no raises included in this budget. And with that, I'll turn it over to EMD Sinagra. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Steve, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. I've been in the position for about 6 weeks now. I've found everybody to be very welcoming and helpful so far. I've met a lot of you. Some of you I haven't. I've seen a lot of faces on my computer screen due to the current conditions. I have reviewed the budget. It looks reasonable. I do have experience with budgeting for the last 8 years. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them as best as I can with what I know from what I've been reading here.
Mrs. Wagner, you have the floor.
Welcome, Mr. Sinagra. It's great to have a full-time emergency management director. And thank you, Brett, too, for filling in. I've been looking at overtime accounts, and there's a really large amount of overtime to the point where you could probably hire another dispatcher or two for the amount of overtime. Is it a scheduling issue? I'm not quite sure why so much overtime is necessary.
That's typical in a 24/7 operation like the dispatch center. So what happens is when someone gets hired, it takes a long time to train someone. So you have somebody who's receiving full-time salary working alongside someone else who's receiving a full-time salary as a trainer, but you still have that vacancy that you have to fill on overtime, which is a full-time position. So
okay.
Until you get that person fully trained, you're paying overtime.
And you had those transitions this year? You've had staff in and out this year?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of Steve on the personnel cost budget of his emergency management budget? And you got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just quickly, because it was kind of to the same question that Miriam had. Do you have any dispatchers in the process of being hired? Are you looking for them now, or?
We're currently at full staffing for full-time dispatchers. So the one that's being trained isn't working on their own. So we still technically are filling that it appears as a vacancy because we don't have that person working on their own.
And do you feel like the amount of dispatches you have is enough, even with when the new one will be trained?
I can say from past experience, not from being here, that you always seem to need at least one more, because you have these situations where people leave for other employment or they retire, and you're always playing catch up. This question comes up a lot with the overtime costs, and if you add a position, you have to weigh the overtime costs against a full-time position with benefits. So there is that magic line where there's a benefit, and you can go beyond that. But it does always seem that if you have one more person than what you have, you're a little better off when it comes time to training and replacing people.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions on the personnel section of this budget? Who? Dave Lynch, you got the floor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through the moderator to Emergency Services Director. Sir, we've talked about overtime, several questions at least, and I had one more question. Is there a maximum number of hours that a person can work, whether they're in full or part-time? Not part-time, is it full-time or in training per week? Say you have a new hire and this person is shadowing, someone who's experienced. Is there a maximum amount of time that you per week or per month that you're allowed to have that person on duty?
That's kind of a two-part question. For a full-time employee, they would train for 40 hours a week on a regular schedule. They wouldn't work overtime while training because they can't work on their own. Part-timers are limited because when you go past a certain hour average per week, per month, per year, you run into situations where you would have to offer benefits to a part-time employee. So part-timers can only train for so many hours in a week, and full-timers train for 40 hours in a week.
I'll be referring more toward suffering from fatigue and not being able to make appropriate decisions because of fatigue issues. Or do we not have those?
No, you can run into that. If we demand a lot of our employees that work 24/7, we can't make them work more than 16 hours in a row. We try to have to give them a reasonable amount of time off between shifts. But we also have to make people work when they don't want to on an overtime basis when we're short of people. We run into that because of training, sick time, vacation time, people are off. And then if you have a vacancy in the department, that just compounds the problem. But being at full staff helps alleviate that. But like I said, you're always playing catch up in a 24/7 operation trying to keep full staffing.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question on personnel for the emergency management budget? If not, we're on to services. Services in this budget is $144,701. Question? Question? No, if there are no questions, we'll go on to material and supplies. That's a subtotal of $2,850. Great. Greg, you got the floor?
Hi. I just had a question. I see shelter supplies and radiological supplies. What exactly does that entail? Like, what kind of products do we have in inventory?
Chief, can you address that one?
Certainly. So when we need to assist with shelter, so we as a town have quite a bit of material in the emergency management building. We've got cots, we've got blankets, etc. We operate through a regional shelter right now with the town of East Lyme, and East Lyme sponsors the shelter. We provide personnel, we provide some materials, etc. Radiological is any of the having millstone in our town demands that we have certain materials and keep those materials, rad detectors, etc., keep them up to date and keep them tested and up to date. So the state helps us with that, but we have some radiological testing materials that we need to keep refreshed every year.
Thank you. And just to follow up on that, in your opinion, do we have everything we would need should we need it?
Yes. Thankfully, we've been at this for quite a long time. The having the shelter in East Lyme really helps us in terms of them providing a base for us, and then we bring our items there. So that's one half of the equation. And then secondly, the radiological materials. We have to watch that they age out, and we've got to get new ones. But the state is very helpful with that. And with us as a host for the EPZ communities, we're the kind of the hub, and then there's spokes off of us because we've got the nuclear power plant in town. The state helps us with some grants and et cetera to keep our supplies up.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any additional questions on material supplies on this budget? Not under equipment. I think we just got dollars there to keep a placeholder. So total budget is $1,087,258. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda is the Police Commission, 10129. There's a total budget of $6,450,741, broken down as follows. For the personnel costs, $849,672. Any question of the chief? Mr. Wagner, you have the floor.
Quick question about overtime. What's the difference between overtime, Brett, and replacement overtime?
So replacement overtime is when an officer takes a sick day, any type of leave, and is replaced. So the officer that is called on to serve in their place due to whatever reason it may be is paid for out of that line item. Regular overtime is, let's say that at the end of my shift, near the end of my shift, I end up making an arrest and I stay past that shift, but I'm not working another one. That's when regular overtime comes to play. There are some other assignments that we have. We have ATV patrols. We have numerous other items in which you end up working an overtime shift or partial shift or some hours that is not a full shift and can't be immediately shown to be in that replacement column. So they separated it out years ago because they wanted to be able to better track how we spend our overtime money.
So I know from past conversations, the overtime had gotten so high that you actually lobbied to hire more policemen, which happened, I believe, correct?
Correct.
And I haven't seen a big drop, though, in overtime.
You've not seen a gain. There's been, the last 3 years, there's not been an increase in the overtime line item at all. So the two officers that we hired 2 years ago when I asked for that, I told you I wouldn't be able to give you I wouldn't be able to show you whether it had decreased or not. It's not decreased, but remember that this budget in front of you also represents 2 years of raises, because this is the only budget that'll come before you tonight that is in contract. And so there's been 2 years of raises, but there's been no increase in the overtime line item, even with 2 new officers.
Good, good. Thank you, Brett.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions from members of the RTM? Nobody? Therefore, we're going to services. Services total request is $341,616. Question? Nothing. No questions. We're going to material supplies, $254,176. If not, we're going to equipment and furniture, $5,277. Question. Mrs. Wood? Nothing. No questions from the RTM. A total requested budget, the police commission, $6,450,741. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain?
Abstain.
We have two abstain. We have two abstentions. You got that recorded, Dave? Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Next item on the agenda is 10147, Information Technologies. Information Technologies has two requests on the services, IT service contracts, $773,708. Any questions? Go ahead. The chief of police also serves as chairman of the IT committee, so if you have any questions, he's available to answer them. On the office equipment computer system, $51,260. Question. Not total department request, $824,968. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain?
Aye.
Who's abstaining?
Greg.
Great.
Greg Atanasio.
Yeah. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Got it.
Next item on the agenda is current year capital improvements. The first thing on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen is the fleet management plan, $900,000. Any questions? Next item on the IT is pure array of $74,000. Any question? Next item on the agenda on the police department is body cameras, $78,250, and infrared cameras in cars of $14,350. Questions? The next thing in the capital improvement plan for this coming year, on the public works, we have Bloomingdale South Mill and Pave, $131,300. He has Gallows Lane reclaiming, $134,000. And remove underground storage tanks at Cohasset Fire, $299,000. Any questions? On the municipal building maintenance improvements, ADA improvements to youth services building, $30,700. Town hall bathrooms, $25,000. Any question? On the utility commission, Evergreen Pump Station, $375,000. Inline wastewater, solid grinders, $35,000. 85,000, excuse me, 85,000. Who's that? Sally Richard, you got the floor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Moderator. This is Sally Ritchie. I wanted to ask a question about the town hall bathroom upgrade, and I'm not sure who I'm to speak to about that. I understand it was cut by the Board of Finance.
Is Abby on tonight?
I am, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Abby, would you take the floor, please, Abby?
Hi,
Yep,
Abby.
so how are you?
Wherever you want.
The project was cut. We will go as far as we can with the money in hand. The intent is to take a look at the bathrooms and establish whether or not there's any plumbing issues that may affect the project over time. But our intent is to take the bathrooms one at a time. So once we do one, we'll know more about the rest. And so it's a project that can be phased over time. So while it may delay all 4 bathrooms in Town Hall getting done at the same time, it won't stop a project from going forward.
Okay, so did you encumber, you have if this is approved, you have the 25,000 that we're talking about tonight. There's still 87.5 that was encumbered from before, Abby?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that helps. You know, in 2015, we did an ADA study of Town Hall. The bathrooms were woefully, they failed on every count. So we now have made a lot of improvements to Town Hall. I'd really like to see this be furthered. And at least, let me ask you, I know you don't know what's between the walls or under the floor. Do you think we might come out with at least one unisex accessible bathroom in Town Hall with $112,000? Probably not, right?
I think the unisex issue would be difficult because of the configuration of the block walls in Town Hall. So the one first floor bathroom that we do have, I don't think that we're going to get the clearances in that no matter what, unless we actually fundamentally change the structure of the building. So our intent would be to modify the 2 single gender bathrooms so that there is at least one stall in each of those that would meet accessibility requirements. And so we would have to, look at door hardware, obviously, and openings and everything. We may need to reduce the number of actual stalls in order to accommodate, but I think that's the direction we'd be going in.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Abby.
Any additional questions on the current year capital improvements budget before we take it to a vote? The total request for this coming year, $2,216,680. Those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? We abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 10140, transfer to capital non-recurring expenditure fund. First item listed is for the assessor, $150,000. Any questions? No question. I'm going to IT, fiber upgrade, $14,000. No questions on that. We're going to the library HVAC upgrade of $200,000. Question. No questions on that. We're going to fire services, hydraulic equipment upgrade, $100,000. Next item on the recreational parks, Waterford Beach Park improvements, $150,000. Question? Well, please excuse me. After we had fire service, hydraulic equipment, I should have read off emergency management, mobile and portable radio replacement program, $273,810. Any questions on that? The chief is here and Steve Sinag was here. Therefore, we'll go back to recreational parks, Waterford Beach Park improvements, $150,000. Any questions? Under Public Works, we have redesign, reconstruct Raymond Road, $263,470. Questions? Next thing on the agenda, on the Utilities Commission, is Old Norwich Road Pump Station rehab, $100,000. Question? On the municipal building maintenance, we have Jordan Village sidewalks, $100,000, and Civic Triangle upgrade, $50,000. The total $150,000. Any question? Mrs. Wagner, you got the floor.
What's the $50,000 going to be used for the civil triangle? I don't know who would speak to that.
I can speak briefly on that, ma'am. This is the initial allocation to look at the duck pond, a path around the duck pond, pedestrian friendly, to keep that going, and a plan for the general oversight of the entire property as well. So we have to do planning. We have to look at all the spaces within the civic triangle to make it more pedestrian friendly, to tie in all the properties to make it safer for everyone, but also a place where we could host farmers markets in the future, place where we could possibly hold concerts for families in the middle of the green. And I'll let Abby speak to this because this was a reduction of 100,000. So we wanted to leave this money in there so we could at least continue with the planning of a more of a central area in town where people could meet. So I'm going to let Abby speak to this as well. So thank you.
Yep. So no, Rob, that was great. I think the intent here is to allow for some planning and preliminary design work, especially for any path work that might happen around the duck pond to make things a little bit more accessible. If it's a boardwalk and a little platform where somebody could rest, take pictures, those types of things. This is all sort of part of a number of planning efforts that have gone on over the years. And so, there was in the earlier 2000s, there was a town sort of center vision done that contemplated some of these improvements. Further work was done in 2014 under the town center vision and strategic plan that talked about sort of the civic triangle as kind of a core area to improve for more pedestrian friendly activities and just kind of creating kind of that vibrant center that I think, right now we have a lot of great neighborhoods and this is a place to tie everybody together in one spot. So the $50,000 gives us a start. Through the first selectman, there'll be a committee created to, sort of handle how things get used and developed. But at least this gives us a place to begin the work and, implement some of the planning efforts that have been done over, the course of many years. I think it'll dovetail nicely into the work that we'll be starting as soon as we can be in person again and pull together our group for the Plan of Conservation and Development update.
Thank you, Abby and Rob. I would just kind of like to request that we start moving more to implementation of that. I don't want to lose any more money than any more of the $50,000 on planning. It's been planned to death. We need to start seeing something happen with that money. Thank you.
Agreed.
Hi, Rich, you've got the floor.
Thank you, through you, Tom. I will say, Mim, I think you nailed it. We've studied it a lot. Abby, does this also incorporate what was done when we did the Jordan Village study? Not that, I guess everything seems like not that long ago. It was probably 5 years ago, but so that's part of it as well. I see Rob's nodding his head. So that's good. I echo Mim in that I hope that there's actually some shoveling and stuff that will happen and no more studying it. Thanks.
Yep, that's the intent too. There's certainly work going on now with the Nevins Cottage assessment, which is part of all of this, and all of these things are starting to come together, and we're actually starting to get the groundwork for work to happen, and I think we're all ready to see something move here.
Any additional questions on the capital non-recurring budget? Jen, you got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Abby, I am not familiar with what's going on with this $50,000. I echo the sentiments of the last two women that spoke. in that I'd like to see some things happen there. But I would also like to make sure that when you say accessible, it's accessible for everyone. You know, I have a brother-in-law that is an amputee. I know that there's a lot of people with wheelchairs and walkers, and I know that adds money, but it took a long time to get that down to Waterford Beach. So I'd love to help you guys with that if you want to bring me on board. But that's just my only thing. I think we need to keep that in the plan because we really need everybody to be able to use that space easily. It's an asset to the town. So anyway, thank you, Abby.
That's a great point. It's well received.
Frank, you got the floor next.
I would like to say that you know, I'd like to see development there. I know this is something that's been kicked around for quite some time. It could tie in nicely to economic development. You know, as mentioned with Nevin's Cottage and a grander plan for the town and developing certain areas. I'm kind of curious. I'll ask you, Abby. You know, or maybe you're not the right person to ask, but how are we planning to fund the, you know, right now we're looking at $50,000 to plan it. You know, how much do we think this project's going to cost, and you know, how are we going to raise funds for it? I mean, it looks like the RTM's made some pretty tough cuts already, and we're looking at $50,000 to study something that's, and maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but it's already been studied before. And what's the comprehensive vision? And are we ready to spend this $50,000 now? Maybe we should wait until there's a little more thought put into it. Not saying there hasn't been thought put into it. I may not just be aware of it. Maybe you can fill me in, Abby. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the intent here really is to the extent that we can leverage, whether it's public-private partnerships, set up donation funds, you know, create mechanisms for others to be involved and be part of implementing the vision. I think that's really going to be important here. So whether that is something, you know, combinations of relaxing regulations to allow for, you know, better outdoor festivals and food trucks to come in to support, you know, things that are going on with the farmers market, and then, you know, looking at garden clubs and other, you know, horticultural groups and stuff like that to help with landscaping. I think there's ways out there, I think, to create some buzz, some interest, and actually generate funds. And I think that has to be a sort of a fundamental piece of this, so that it's not all public money being put in. It's, you know, there's public match, but it's meant really to inspire folks to get involved, and whether it's through in-kind services, through, you know, donations of goods or other things, for us to be able to do things like build a path around the duck pond, or, you know, sort of get to our work at Nevin's. You know, certainly grant work will be part of this. So I think the idea for funding is really a combination. There's, you know, what we have now, I think, are solid plans with lots of different elements. And one of the things, you know, as the first selectman gears up to form a committee to kind of oversee this, is going to be picking and choosing which of the elements that have already been planned go first. And I think right now the thought is that path and getting people an accessible means, you know, into the property is the priority number one.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see something happen there. Again, I think there's a lot of potential, and I think, you know, make it a destination. I think, you know, Waterford could use some really solid destinations, and I see the value in that on multiple levels. My understanding, Rob's going to put together a committee on it. Maybe, just an idea, maybe it would be better to wait to spend this money until the committee has more of a comprehensive idea of what they would like to do there. I mean, if we're going to go to an outside firm, maybe not entirely sure of what we want ultimately on the property, maybe it's better to hold back until we have that. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to cut that line item from the budget.
How much, Greg?
The full 50,000.
You have a second?
Second.
Ms. Wagner? Did you second that? Who seconded that?
Sue Driscoll.
Sue Driscoll, okay.
Motion made and seconded to cut the $50,000 for the specific triangle discussion.
Rich Muckle.
Make
You
a
got the
friendly
floor.
motion, friendly amendment to the motion that we leave $1 in there for future funding possibilities.
I will certainly accept that, and I hope this project does ultimately come to fruition. Maybe we should take a step back in the approach for a second.
Mr. Moderator.
The moderator recognizes the first selectman have to take the floor.
Sure. I would just like to, to start by saying I understand exactly what Representative Tascio is speaking of. This is something, this plan for the Civic Triangle has been talked about in town for some of you who haven't lived here the 50 years. This has been talked about for quite a while. It's an area in town that we're trying to develop. As you know, trying to jump on the Economic Development Committee now, Greg. It's very important area in town to start this process. And it's gone about 14 years where no seed money has been put in. So the idea has died on a vine. This whole idea started with a larger amount in there, but due to the economic climate of the town, I reduced it. I reduced it because this would get us to the point where we could create some drawings if we needed to. But the best part of this was $50,000 earmarked towards an area of town that can start our economic development. We can continue to talk about other businesses that are on Route 1 in between the school, in between the library. And it'd be nice to be able to go to the library and then go down to the duck pond with your family members and then tie it into the playground up top. It's been talked about, but nothing's been done because we haven't put money there. So with this said, if you don't know me, you'll know me soon. I will not do anything that is not well thought out. I will not spend money that is not well spent. This is from now until next June. This entire idea is dead in the water. And I think with the farmers market, if this pandemic didn't happen, we had a huge celebration that was going to happen in the summer based off of this type of commitment to that area. The softball field's been moved. There's movement going on in that area. There's trails that we don't tap into right now that we could at just very little money. So this was something on top of Nevin's Cottage and the Historic Society becoming part of our social service grants again this year after Mr. Linsa would know after 10 years not being on the social service grants, all to tie this section of town together. So the first step was around the duck pond. It could be something else. This committee will make that decision. I will not. So I'm going to please ask the committee to support this idea and the seed money, and knowing that I will not let you down and spend money that is not going to be well vetted by the committee. So thank you for listening.
I agree, Rob.
Mike Rochetti's next.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there. We just cut $470,000 from the education budget, and we're going to spend $50,000 planning a pathway. Maybe now's not the time, given the current situation. That's just my thought. I would like to see it happen ultimately. I think it's a very good thing for the town that we're putting forward here. Thank you.
Mike Rocchetti, you've got the floor.
Thanks, Tom, through you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to echo First Selectman Rob's sentiment. Many of you know me, and you know I don't like to spend money unless we're going to get a return on it or it's going to bring some value to the town. I have talked with many of you about doing something with the Civic Triangle area. I would say it's not a large amount of money. Again, this is my 5th year on the RTM. I think I talked about it before I got in the RTM. If this helps us move forward and do something, I would like to help. I will get on a committee. I think that area could be an asset to the town. So I understand your reluctance, Greg, and I hear you. I hate paying other people to tell us what we should do when we can go out and find to do it. But if this helps push the ball downhill, and start the committee and do something, I would support it. Thank you.
Swanson, you got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I also feel that getting this project started is a win for the town. And just the pathway alone, if we get people walking through there, it'll build the interest. It'll build the support from the taxpayers. So I am also for keeping that money in.
YouTube feed is down.
Nope, it's not.
Paul Goldstein, you got the floor next.
Video's choking.
Yes, I will have to tend to agree with our first select person. I think the money has to stay in that
We're still live,
spot
though.
for right now. I'm
It's just-
willing to
it's
imagine
locking up.
that a committee would be shortly formed as soon as we can get out of these uncertain times, even if it has to be through a Zoom meeting. I have a lot of faith in our planning director, Abby Pearsall, who's been helping to lead the charge in the meantime. This has been talked about for a long time, and it's been put on hold for a long time. I think the time has to be moving forward with the planning stages, and this is money that allows for that committee as well as Abby to move forward within the next fiscal year. It's not all the money to get everything done, but it is a starting point, and I think we have to move forward instead of keep moving backwards with this area. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just it's.
Here you go, see if you got the floor.
Yeah, I got to echo the sentiments of the first selectmen too. I've known Rob for quite some time. We've brainstormed and many different opportunities at this location, and they all bring bring this town to a new level. I am for it. I think that area could be an unbelievable spot. So many ideas that I've seen, that I've talked about, that we've just batted around, that all could happen. It just needs to start, and this is the start. So I'm for this.
Member Coley asking for the floor. Take it.
Thank you. Abby, that we can look at? Is there any plan for this so far? Anything on paper?
There are a couple things. One, the sort of board, the planning board from the early 2000s effort that I know Robert was part of is, I believe we posted it online. I think it was supposed to come as backup to the material that you have. Also online, if you go to the Planning and Development webpage, the Town Center Vision and Strategic Plan, the most recent one done in 2014, takes into account some of the elements out of that original plan and then plans from before it, and then also talks about how the Civic Triangle ties into both Jordan Village and sort of the corridor toward New London. So there's really, there's a couple things that are available for folks to go and see.
Okay, because I agree with Mr. I don't know if I'm going to say it right, Attanasio, in that I don't want to waste any money. I don't want to go putting in a walkway and then rip it out. There was a few things that they put off till next year in that area that I said, thank goodness, because I wouldn't have voted for it because it would have been a waste of money when there's no plan. So but I also agree with Rob and Steve and Mike and Paul in that it's an awesome area and something needs to be done with it. It's just sitting there like a waste right now. So I will look into those, and I really think we need to get moving on this. Even if we're in this pandemic, doesn't mean we can't sit down and brainstorm and get something moving. We're not wasting this money. Thank you.
Hello, Richie, you've got the floor.
Through you, Tom, thank you. I just got thinking about how well Rec and Park and Public Works are currently working together down at the beach. And we're seeing really a renewed interest and spirit of cooperation, I think, in town, where instead of us clashing, oh, that's my area, no, that's my area, we're working together. And I think in that spirit, it might be that more could actually be done in-house and not take as long. And I see Rob shaking his head. I think it's working great down at the beach, and I think we can build off of that and make things happen and be good stewards of the money, because I know we're making cuts and it's very difficult. But 30 years ago, that was a day out with my kids, the library and the duck pond. And sometimes it was a soupy mess down there, but it was something we did when you could still give bread to the ducks.
Greg, you got the floor.
You're muted, Greg.
Greg, you're muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to state, I support the overall project and the premises of it. I think it is something that the town should get around to doing. It just seems like we're really trying to get the budget right, and kind of to Jen's point, we don't want to take a step forward then have to take a step back, and that meaning money. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that's the intent here. I'm just trying to play it a little safe with this, and I support the idea. I mean, I want to make that clear. I support doing something down there. Just maybe we should wait till next year or form a committee and then really understand what the ask is.
Tim Fioravanti's up.
Tim Fioravanti, you got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This goes to First Selectman Brule. Do you anticipate making money as soon as this project is done with charging for concerts, or is it going to cost us money with police presence and cleanup and all that kind of stuff?
That's a good question, Tim. My thought is, just like this pandemic, it's going to be a fluid thing. I think when you build it, people will come. We are such a performing arts, I don't have to tell you. I mean, you and Steve, Shane, the people who I know, I came from art therapy background. So music, art, it's necessary in this town. We're the capital for performing arts in southeastern Connecticut, with Eugene O'Neill, with you, with Shane, with what we have in this area. And it's something that we haven't tapped into. And these are these little filler things that you can't put a price tag on some of these things. We don't have an area where we can even have, a group come in and play because we don't have the power that runs out and have speakers involved. We don't have simple things that, where we can just have a farmer's market and support 6 local farms that are struggling to even stay in business right now because we don't have a space for them to go safely where it's not on a parking lot. These are all things that I've thought about quite a bit over the years, and I saw the conceptual design when I was on the chairman of that committee to begin with. There isn't going to be a lot of, specific training or specific planning that needs to go on. So I want to reassure people that. But I see this coming where if you build it, people will come. We will have the best library in the state of Connecticut open, providing kids programs on the same day that the senior center or community center is open for other programming, and the high school might have an event going on. And then you'll go over, have a parade, and head over to Veterans and watch you play concert for free. And maybe it's enjoyed by everybody. So the vision is there. I can't really, I do know that this community is just thriving for somewhere to go and be a collective body and to be a group. And in this day more than ever, this is more important than ever. And just to get back, and Tim, I'm sorry, but just to get back to Greg's point about, there's 2 pieces to this project too in this capital request, and we skipped over it. The sidewalk that costs $100,000, that's just as important to this part of my project to begin with. That's going to lead us into the Civic Triangle, and we're getting a $285,000 grant for that. So it's so important that we put the $100,000 with the Jordan Historical Society there, where you have now a safe walkway to even lead in from that direction into this area. So I really am committed to this, Tim. I think sky's the limit. We have so many creative people in town that want to see a vision outdoors that people can go. Plenty of parking, safe. So I do. I see somewhere down the road where you could have people paying to come. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Moderator.
I'm gonna interrupt real quick, Tim.
Okay.
They're having technical difficulties on YouTube's end, and the public's not watching right now. So we are gonna go into a recess and let them catch up, and then hopefully it's all good to go. We have IT here, so they're checking it, and we'll know soon. So let's think about 10 minutes, and we'll reconvene if that's okay with the moderator. Go ahead.
Let's stand to a technical difficulties and recess at this time. About 10 minutes.